Warner takes.
ArizonaSports.com presents Kurt, a retrospective video series.
What a throw by Warner.
Favorite moment as a Cardinal.
Okay, there's tons of things with Kurt Warner that you remember, but for me, it's Flagstaff, Arizona. And the amount of times players, really all across the NFL, but specifically for the Cardinals, kind of got sick of autographs. You just get sick of it. People come up to you all the time, and then somebody's going to judge you because maybe you signed autographs for 35 minutes yesterday, but now you got to hurry to a meeting, and you won't sit there and sign autographs. I understand it. Sometimes fans don't. Kurt Warner never left the field without waiting to sign anything somebody wanted. I remember walking off the field one time, and he's sitting at some kind of makeshift desk or table, and there was a line the length of the football field, and yet no other player signing. And there's Kurt Warner. So there's a lot of memories that have to do with a football in his hand, but for me, it was always how he treated people.
My favorite moment in Kurt Warner's Cardinal career, it's actually a weird one, but you got to follow me on it. Goes back to the 2008 preseason. There was a quarterback battle going on, and Matt Leinart was going to be the starting quarterback heading into the season. He was the number 1 draft pick, 10th overall, 2 years prior. It was his time to take over the team. Third preseason game, Cardinals go to Oakland, and Matt Leinart absolutely stinks up the joint. He goes 4 for 12. He throws 3 picks. Ken Wisenhunt, the head coach at the time, had no choice really but to put Kurt Warner in as the starting quarterback, and we know what happened the rest of that season. So while people call Matt Leinart a bust, we should really be thanking him for being so bad in that preseason game that it opened the door for a magical season for Kurt Warner and the Cardinals.
My favorite moment of Kurt as a Cardinal is probably not something that was on the field, because we could talk about the NFC Championship game against the Eagles. We could talk about the great pass to Fitz in the Super Bowl, the game against the Packers, and I know everybody remember those things. My great memory of Kurt is going into the gym, working out, and having a phone conversation with him because we were arguing about whether Ben Roethlisberger was better than him, because I had said on the radio that Ben Roethlisberger was a better quarterback than Kurt Warner, and I think he took exception to that. So before I can get my workout in, I was actually arguing with Kurt on my way to the gym, talking about who was a better quarterback. And not that he didn't like Ben, but he was making an argument for himself, and I was making an argument for Ben Roethlisberger. That's just a fun memory I have of Kurt Warner.
Favorite moment as a Cardinal is the first half of the NFC Championship game. Of course, he was my teammate. I was on the team, and watching him just do his thing against the Philadelphia Eagles, just carve them up with all types of passes to so many different players. You look at the 3 touchdown passes to Larry Fitzgerald, which obviously was a big catalyst in us reaching that Super Bowl. You cannot forget Kurt was the big architect, and then you had the flea flicker where he threw the ball down the field to Fitz for the huge play. Just he was on fire in those 2 years in 2008 as well as 2009. So, but that's my favorite moment, that first half and what he was able to do to lead us to a victory. I'll never forget it.
It wasn't their best season. It wasn't their best postseason run. It didn't have anything to do with the Super Bowl year. It was the year after, when he and Aaron Rodgers had that ridiculously legendary duel at University of Phoenix Stadium, in which Kurt had more touchdown passes than he did incompletions. A number which is just kind of burned in your brain if you're a Cardinals fan. You'll always remember what he was able to accomplish that day. Now, unfortunately, the next week they lost to the Saints. The week after that, he retired from the NFL, and the dream kind of came to a crashing halt. But on that day at University of Phoenix Stadium, the show that he and Rodgers put on, yeah, I know they went to the Super Bowl the year before. That, to me, is the lasting singular memory of Kurt Warner.
One of my favorite moments, and I saw this dozens of times, Kurt Warner would come off the field. It would be a failed third down, or maybe they go 3 and out, right? And waiting for him, before he even got to the white stripe, was Todd Haley. And you just waited 3, 2, 1, blast off. And the two of them would just go at it. And they'd be barking at each other like a manager screaming at an umpire. And they'd air it out right there. And then Kurt, all of a sudden, he said, okay. Put his helmet on the bench. He'd walk over, he'd get a cup of Gatorade. And then the two of them would be game planning all over again. They'd just be looking at overhead photos. And they were like a married couple. They just would start bickering and then just go back to their business. But you know what? You had 2 perfectionists who wanted to get it right. And what they were doing was elevating everyone else. They elevated the expectations from everyone else. And to me, that was the process of the Cardinals learning to win, expecting more out of themselves. And Kurt Warner and Todd Haley being perfectionists, that was one of the instrumental keys to the evolution of the Cardinals.
One thing people will always remember is the NFC Championship game back in the 2008 season, 2009 playoffs. The Cardinals got out to a big lead in that game, and then they coughed that lead up. But Kurt Warner, because he was playing at the top of his game at that time in his career, was able to guide the Cardinals down the field to take the lead and ultimately win the NFC Championship game and make it to the Super Bowl. And after the game, Kurt Warner had his memorable speech about how no one believed in him, no one believed in the Cardinals, but the fans did. And then we're going to the Super Bowl was his big exclamation point for that one. And the Cardinals, the Arizona Cardinals, were going to the Super Bowl because of Kurt Warner.